Greetings, YouTubians, and welcome back to Wayne Sharp World, where today I have another episode brought to you guys by Blade Ops. Be sure to look them up for all things sharp, and be sure to hop on down in the description of this video, click on that link, and check out the knives in this video, as well as the rest of their great selection of EDC knives and gear. Now, what I have for you today is a couple Hogue knives. One that I actually own this model, but not this version, and it is a massive difference, let me tell you. And then I also have another completely different model I've never handled up until this point that I have kind of some mixed emotions on, but we'll take a look at both of those after I get the sticker out of the way with my massive forehead on the front of it. And let's get right into it and take a look at the first knife that we have here. And this here is the K320 AXG. Now, as you guys know, this is very similar to the K320 Nitron. The big difference is in the handle. As a matter of fact, all the differences in the handle, because this is the exact same blade on the K320 Nitron. Let's take a look at some overall specs real quick. We have an overall length of 8 inches with a blade length coming in at 3.5 and a handle length at 4.5 inches. Steel, like I said, this is the exact same blade, CPM S30V steel blade, which is still a great steel and absolutely good to go for any EDC knife, especially in my collection. I never frown on S30V. I know there's S35 and there's other premium steels, and they're all good and great, but S30V still does the job just fine. Now, the handle material, this is where things get very good, and it just completely elevates this knife. We have a handle material of aluminum with an inlay. Now, there's a couple different options for the inlay. This one here has a G10 inlay, but then there's also an option with, I believe, an ironwood inlay, some type of wood that it looks absolutely phenomenal. If I had to pick one, I'd probably go with the wood inlay. I don't know. I actually really do like this for a couple of reasons that we'll hit on later. But a weight coming in at 5.1 ounces, so it's a little heavier with the aluminum and the inlay and stuff. But well worth it in my opinion, because again, the feel and hand with this guy is fantastic. And a price of $210, which is considerably more than the original, but keep in mind the original K320 Nitron only has polymer handles, so big difference there. A lot of other things stay the same though, but let's do some size comparisons real quick in case you guys have not seen my full review on the K320 Nitron, because this is literally the exact same knife with just a different handle and obviously the inlays and stuff. But there's your Hogue Deca. And then also another really good size comparison right here. The Giant Mouse Ace Grand is a fantastic comparison to this knife. Doesn't have the choil, but the overall just size of it is very good. So there's those two for you. Got some quick size comparisons. And now let's talk about this knife kind of briefly, because, you know, this is kind of like a double review, and I've already reviewed this before. You guys know how much I love this knife, which is it really even had me more excited to get this in hand, because the blade is still amazing. It's still that super slicey blade that Hogue does such a good job on, and that edge, look at the finish on that edge. It is just so smooth. This is a very slicey nice knife, even though it's not exactly razor thin behind the edge. What really makes this knife work the way it does is the excellent honing job that Hogue does on their edges, and just the overall quality they put into every edge that leaves their door. This guy would cut with the best of them, that is for sure. The only thing that, I mean, if I had to change something about this blade, it would definitely be the cutout here. I really don't have a huge issue with, as I botched that, I don't have a huge issue with the cutout. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. I really wish they would, I don't mind the shape. I just wish they'd make it a little bigger, make it just a little easier to stick that middle finger in there and flip it out. But it works really good for thumb roll. As you can see, I middle finger flicked it, and you can also index flick it, and of course thumb flick it once you get, you got to get kind of comfortable with the actual shape and size of the cutout. That's the only thing on this blade that could be made better, in my opinion, with the exception of course, a more premium steel, but like I said, fine with S30V. But the cutout, some people will not like, other people think it's completely fine. I think it's fine, but there's always room for improvement somewhere, right? You're always looking to get better, so I wouldn't mind seeing a little change in the blade cutout there. But now you get down to the handle of this guy, and this is where this is kind of like the TRM Atom for me. When I changed my scales, I had some micarta scales on my TRM Atom, and I got the milled titanium scales, and I swapped those out, and it changed the knife for me. And that is what you have here with this. These aluminum scales, the fit and finish is spectacular. The G10 inlay is raised a little, so it's not like you're trying to not feel a transition line. Like you want the raised inlay here, especially with the texturing, and combine that with the smooth aluminum. It gives you that grip you want. So when you're gripping down, especially your middle ring and pinky finger, just grab onto that. It's so good, and the choil locks your index finger in. Some absolutely phenomenal ergos. And you have phenomenal ergos on the original K320 Nitron too, but the way they did it on this with the inlay and just the overall, again, handle shape feels so good. This is a knife where the premium version really does, it makes me want to buy it even though I have the other version, because it is that good. They did a couple different things with like the clip down here. They don't have like the gold little insert liners and stuff since it's the aluminum handle. So it looks a little better on the polymer handle. You'll see some of the gold highlights because there's like inset, not screws, but inset areas for the screws to go into. So it's a little more of an all blacked out look. And the action with this able lock is buttery smooth, but I will say this is a little stiff out of the box, and I think that's probably just from the nature of an aluminum handle versus a polymer handle. It just takes a little more break-in time than a polymer handle, but at the end of the day, it breaks in so good, and it is definitely one that really does help the able lock shine. I think just the overall blade size falls shut, very easy to manipulate and kick that blade out. Just an absolutely excellent offering. And there's actually a decent amount of these left at Blade Ops right now. There's the Tonto version with, I believe there's the Tonto version with the G10 inlay and the wood inlay. And then there's also the drop point version with also the G10 inlay like you see here, as well as the ironwood inlay. So some great options for a fantastic knife. And again, we're talking completely made in America for $210. Yeah, that's a yes all day for me, and it's going to be really hard for me not to go want to pick up the one with the wood inlay. And I'm still kind of considering this G10 inlay. It's just great. It's the complete package of a great medium-sized knife with perfect ergos, a nice deep carry clip, and just aesthetics that I think are spot on. Just a beautiful knife, and an excellent offering of a more premium version of an already great knife from Hogue. So they really executed this one very well. That is the Hogue K320 AXG. And we will put this to the side and bring in the next knife, which is one that I've been wanting to check out for a very long time. And it's this guy right here. This is the Hogue Exploit OTF. And I had so many things that I was thinking about with this. Like, there was parts of this knife that I love, and then there's other parts of it to where I was like, I don't know, I think it needs a little refining. And I still feel like that. And we'll cover all that here after some quick specs. We have an overall length of 8.3 inches, a blade length coming in at 3.5 inches, and a handle length of 4.8 inches. Steel on this guy is also S30V. As you can see right there, this was an Alan Elishewitz design. And you have a handle material of aluminum with a really nice honeycomb milling on it. So that looks pretty cool. Weight of 4 ounces, so not too bad. And really, this feels like stupid light. It does not feel like 4 ounces. I think it's just the nature of like just kind of how wide and boxy it is and just the way the weight's dispersed. It's a very well balanced knife and just does not feel heavy at all. Price on this guy, $272. You know, $272 for American-made OTF, that's not bad. That's really not bad at all. Considerably less than Microtech, and in the ballpark of Guardian Tactical as well as Axial Gear. So not too bad of an offering there. Let's take a look at some size comparisons, and I actually have an OTF somewhere. Here we go. This is my lone OTF right now. Well, at least kind of fuller size OTF. This is the axial gear shift. And as you can see, very close. If you guys remember my review of the shift, it's very comparable to the overall length of a Microtech Ultratech. So this is slightly bigger, slightly wider than an Ultratech or this axial gear shift. So there's your size comparison for what that's worth. And now let's get into this blade, because this is, again, this kind of goes against the myth of what people think about OTF blades, because people say they don't have good cutting geometry, they're not good EDC blades. Maybe for a dagger blade, I would agree with that. But this version here, this clip point version, is, first of all, it's gorgeous, and second of all, it cuts phenomenally well. 26 thousandths behind the edge. You factor in that Hogue edge that is better than the rest. I'm just going to say it. No beating around the bush anymore. I do think Hogue has probably the best edges in the industry, and you notice it in their knives and the performance. Another thing that is really worth noticing here is the blade play, or lack thereof. Now, there is some blade play. You can hear it, and you can feel it, but I'm going to say, I personally, on this one at least, and I've said before in the past, I feel like OTFs, they can be a little more across the board in terms of like blade play and quality, because there's just a lot more going on. It's not just a regular folding knife. There's more mechanisms, more springs, more stuff that you can go wrong with. But what I'm noticing with this guy here is ever so slightly less blade play than a Microtech or even the axial gear you saw out here. Not like night and day difference. It's not, I mean, it's not something that I think is really going to be a big decision maker for me, because like I said before, I'm okay with the blade play in a Microtech or an axial gear. But this one too, coming out and just it doesn't shake as much. Hear that? You don't hear anything because there's very little shaking. I really like that. The actuator is very stiff. It's not stiff in terms of feel and deployment, but just stiff in terms of like it doesn't wiggle and wobble and rattle. I like that. I really like that. Like I said, slightly less blade play from what I think in terms of just the blade in general. So overall, very, very nice blade. Really like the tip on this guy. It's a nice working tip with a slicey end. Just a pretty darn nice blade, and an OTF blade that could arguably be my favorite OTF blade. But then you move down into the chassis, and things get a little weird down at the chassis. I can't say it's my favorite OTF chassis, just because the proportion of the handle to the blade is so different. Now, I will say in terms of just how it feels in hand, it feels pretty good, but then my middle finger kind of tends to land right around this area here. I can move it up and down and avoid it, but the thing is if I move it up, I feel like in terms of where the actuator placement is, it doesn't feel right with my thumb. And when I move it back, then I feel a little too far back. So I would really like to see this handle just smoothed out a little, not quite have these angles and areas here. Now again, this is my hand, and my hand is not the same size as your hand, most likely. So it's going to feel different for everybody. But for me, I just would like to see a little more refinement in terms of the handle shape. Maybe see it narrow just a little, and especially get rid of kind of these areas here where they kind of try to force your finger where to go. This area down here feels okay, but I'm like, if you're going to get rid of that, you might as well get rid of that. But I don't mind the way it feels overall, like the width. The actual width, I don't mind it. It's just the aesthetics and the sizing balance of the width of the handle to the width of the blade. It's a pretty drastic difference. And really looking at it on the other end of my camera, it doesn't look quite as bad on the camera. But when you have it in hand in person, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm being weird. But it's just, I think it's a little too wide. I think the proportion's slightly off for me in terms of just overall design aesthetics. The clip back here is a decent clip. It's okay. I wish Hogue wasn't there. I mean, yeah, it's just kind of meh for me. But the actual actuator here, this is a double-edged sword as well, because I really like using the actuator to deploy the blade. It makes it very easy. But then when you actually go to use the blade, this thing here, the top of the actuator, it's a little too, I don't want to say pointy because it doesn't feel pointy, but I feel it more than I want to. I wish it was a little more flat, a little more wider or longer, and have more of a base at the top so I can leave my thumb on it more when I'm using it. Now, you could also always choke up a little, and this probably would work very well for a lot of people, I think, because you get up on the back of the blade. It's not a dagger, so you're fine there, and it's a good place to put your thumb. And it actually feels really good in hand here, too, because then I have this point in between my middle finger and ring finger. And so you got some good things going on there. It's a good position to work with the knife. I just wish I didn't have to do that, to be totally honest. When it comes to an OTF, I don't really want to put my finger on the blade at all, unless I really have to, but I want to just keep it back here. I want to keep it on the chassis. That's just me personally. Some may very strongly disagree with that, and if you like to put your finger on the back of the knife when you're using an OTF, that's fine. Just, don't do it with a dagger. But no, I don't know. Just not quite for me in terms of the ergos on this guy. I think some people may like it, but yeah, it's not quite for me. What I do really love about this OTF, though, is the action. Blade fires out. Like I said, no rattle. It's a pretty smooth deployment. So very good action. Very good action on this guy. I was pretty surprised when I first shot this blade out. It definitely hits a little harder than some other OTFs I've handled. I'm not saying this is the hardest hitting OTF ever, but it's definitely in the upper echelon in terms of firing power. So I really do like that. Really love the blade design in general. Would just like to see a little more refinement in the handle. I think if we could see some refinement in the handle, maybe do something with that clip. Especially, again, being made in the USA, that's always a big selling point. This has potential to be one of the best OTFs on the market with a little refinement, in my opinion. Not quite fully there yet, but I really like what I'm seeing from Hogue. I've been wanting to check out the Exploit for a very, very long time. Really glad to get this on the channel. If you guys have handled the Exploit or own one, let me know what you think of it. And of course, the AXG, I am a big fan of the AXG. I really hope they come out with a Magna Cut version because I would buy one in a stinking heartbeat. But I would, like I said, I'm still thinking about buying just an AXG with S30V. But that's it, guys. Let me know what you think of this one. Ran a little long on this, but we had two knives, so it makes sense. Let me know what you guys think. Really hope you enjoyed this one. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And until the next one, I'm out.